Hi, peeps. You're listening to She's My Cherry Pie, the baking podcast from the Cherry Bombe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jessie Sheehan. I'm a baker, recipe developer, and author of 4 baking books, including Salty, Cheesy, Herby, Crispy, Snackable Bakes. On each episode, I hang out with the sweetest bakers around and take a deep dive into their signature bakes. Today's guest is Lucie Franc de Ferriere. Lucie is the founder and baker behind From Lucie Bakery in New York City. Lucie's been on the show before, and I am thrilled to have her back on to catch up. Lucie is a self-taught baker who started making cakes during the pandemic and quickly became known for her charming, whimsical cakes, topped with buttercream and festooned with fresh flowers. She grew up in the French countryside, and her childhood memories and love of nature constantly inspire her creations. She opened her brick and mortar in 2023, and it's an adorable shop in the East Village. They have whole cakes, cake slices, cookies, and more, and everything is just delicious. And Lucie is on the cover of the new cake issue of Cherry Bombe magazine. It's a beautiful photo that features her outside From Lucie holding a classic Lucie layer cake, the one we discuss in today's episode. Lucie joins me today to talk about her childhood in France, how she was more of an eater than a baker back then, about receiving her first stand mixer from her then-boyfriend, now husband, as a gift, about how the pandemic made her realize how deeply she loved baking, and her upcoming book, Cake from Lucie, out next spring. She also walks me through her salted dark chocolate espresso cake recipe, which is covered in a luscious buttercream, some of which has mini chocolate chips in it. Yum! It's a bestseller at the bakery and is seen in Lucie's arms on Lucie's Cherry Bombe cover. Lucie tells me how this cake is really the ultimate adult birthday cake. I loved catching up with Lucie, so stay tuned for our chat. Today's episode is presented by King Arthur Baking Company. They're one of our go-to flours and baking resources with over 2,000 test kitchen tested recipes, plus virtual and on-demand classes. And this is the time of year we need them most, holiday baking season. King Arthur has everything you need for your impressive holiday bakes, breads, and pies. I've got my eye on the cinnamon sugar donut muffins. If you want to win your cookie swap, check out their Cookie Survival Guide with curated recipes, tips, and timelines. Or maybe you want to master the lattice on your apple pie, which you can learn in their on-demand classes. They just dropped so many new ones with everything from macaron to a show-stopping bûche de Noël. You've been wanting to make one, so let this be your sign to do it this year. Oh, and the best part is, they even have a baker's hotline you can call for any of your baking questions. Seriously, any questions. Learn more at kingarthurbaking.com. Today's episode is presented by California Prunes. I'm looking at a bunch of bananas on my counter right now, just waiting to be turned into my chocolate prune and creme fraiche banana bread. The prunes get deliciously soft and jammy as they bake. They're one of my favorite secret ingredients. They're also super good for you, which is a bonus. Did you know that prunes are packed with dietary fiber? Okay, yes, you probably did. But they also support bone health, which is extra important to me. And they're packed with vitamins and antioxidants. So much goodness. Whenever I am looking to add a little natural sweetness to something, from my morning smoothie to an oatmeal cookie, I know prunes will do just the trick. One of my favorite ways to use them is in my sticky toffee pudding snacking cake. Yes, I turned this beloved pudding into a snacking cake. And it's so good, peeps. I swap prunes in for the traditional dates, which adds a more intense fruitiness and aren't quite as sweet. The result is the perfect ratio of sweet, salty, and sticky, and it's so easy to assemble. Trust me, you'll want to make this dessert soon. If you're looking to add more prunes to your baking, know that they pair brilliantly with other deep, complex flavors, especially chocolate. Or chop them up to use as you would any other dried fruit in your granola or cookies. It's hard to go wrong. For more info and creative recipes, check out the California Prunes website at californiaprunes.org. That's californiaprunes.org. Cake lovers, did you see the new issue of Cherry Bombe magazine? It's all about cake and features 3 incredible self-taught cake artists on the covers. Lucie Franc de Ferriere of From Lucie, Amy France, a.k.a. Young Kombucha 420, and Amy Yip of Yip Studio. All 3 discovered their passion for cake making and design out of necessity during the pandemic and transformed their hobbies into thriving careers. You'll love getting to know these women in our cover stories, written by Cherry Bombe founder Carrie Diamond and brought to life with beautiful photography by Sunny Chokre. What else is in this issue? A bounty of delicious cake recipes, profiles of even more incredible cake artists, stories of nonprofits using cakes for a good cause, an inspiring bake sale, and so much more. To snag the mag, head to cherrybombe.com or find a copy at your local bookstore. You can find us in some great places across the country, like Kitchen Arts and Letters in Manhattan, Books Are Magic in Brooklyn, Omnivore Books on Food in San Francisco, Book Larder in Seattle, Vivian Culinary Books in Portland, Oregon, and Mama Bread in Nashville. For a full list of retailers, visit cherrybombe.com. Let's chat with today's guest. Lucie! So excited to have you on She's My Cherry Pie again and to talk salted dark chocolate espresso cake, your upcoming first cookbook, and so much more with you.
Thanks for having me again.
As we discussed the last time you were on the pod, and listeners, I highly recommend going back and giving our first chat a listen. You grew up in Bordeaux in the French countryside where your dad ran a vineyard and your mom a B&B and a tea room. Can you tell us like a very early baked good eating memory, either something maybe that your mom baked or going to like a boulangerie or a patisserie with her?
Oh, yeah. So there's a memory that every Saturday after dance class that I hated, my mum knew that the only way to keep me going to dance was to drive me to a boulangerie in Bergerac, and I would get a chocolate eclair, dark chocolate eclair every time. And she was like, that's just the only way I know my kid's going to keep going. So that's my fun memory of every Saturday of my mum. And if I still feel like a little bit homesick or whatever, I usually go to Dominique Ancel and get the chocolate eclair there and eat it.
I learned this time that you were actually a little more of an eater than a baker when you were little. Do you have an early memory of baking maybe with your mom? Or?
Yes, the cake that she would let me help her with was the Victoria sponge that she made because it was a pretty easy one as well. Yeah, I would still be eating most of the batter versus actually making it. But that was kind of a fun memory that we had because it was an easy one. And she was just like, okay, you can do this while I do that. So I felt a bit of a freedom to make my own cake, even though she was supervising. But that was the one cake that I remember baking with my mom, and I loved it.
I read this about you, which I love. It sounds so delicious. I read that you have like a deep love of baguette with milk chocolate.
Oh, yeah. I actually talk a little bit about it in my cookbook that's coming out, but there's a whole section that's called goûter. And goûter, we call it a 4 p.m. snack for every children in France. And you come back from school and you usually have either like a hot chocolate and then you have cut a baguette and you get your 4 or 5 chocolate pieces, so like a chocolate bar, and you just push it in. So you usually remove the inside of the baguette. You eat it, of course, and then you put your chocolate inside in it, and then you just eat it.
Oh my gosh!
And it's like half a baguette usually that you eat.
Oh my gosh!
And for some reason, my mom was like, "Yeah, that's going to be your goûter every day."
Why milk chocolate? Because I feel like you're a dark chocolate person. Is that right?
Oh, I'm a dark chocolate person now, but I feel like growing up, I still had that sweet tooth that a kid had. And I mean, the milk chocolate I had was not that sweet now that I think about it, but it definitely brought in a bit more sweetness.
Your mom was an exceptional baker, and you've described her as your original baking teacher. But you were actually more an eater of her bakes than you were a baker of them. I thought this was so interesting. You didn't actually really begin baking until you moved to New York City. Were you just not interested? Were you sort of like, these are all delicious, yummy things, and I love them, but I'm more interested in art, or definitely not ballet, but art or something else that was sort of drawing you in a hobby kind of way?
Yeah, I think there was also this sort of non-approachable feel to it, just because she kind of did it when either I was, at school or something else. So I never really, I never felt very comfortable even wanting to do some. And it was already there. So then I was just like, I just have to eat it. I don't have to make it myself. I think if my mom wasn't as big of a baker. I would have probably started baking earlier because I still had that sweet tooth. But you're right, I was very into the arts. And that's just my sort of stubborn side. I was just like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I want to be an art curator. I'm going to work for a museum or an art gallery. And so I was just kind of very driven in that, to the point where I was just had no real hobbies or anything on the outside.
But when you were little, were you making art? Because there must have been outlets for your creativity when you were little, if you weren't in the kitchen putting beautiful flowers into your Victoria's
And I think I
bunch.
was like helping in the garden as well. But I was spending a lot of time like drawing and painting. And I would used to do a few like painting classes and stuff like that. So definitely I would lock in and start drawing or painting. And then like 5 hours later, my parents would be like, okay, I've taken a break. And I was like, it's been 5 hours.
Yeah,
and
wow.
so I like to lose myself in those kind of creative sides. And then I literally just wrote a children's book for my nephew that my sister just gave birth like 2 weeks ago. So I just wrote a children's book that I drew for Christmas. And again, it took me like 3 days, but I just locked in for 3 days.
Yeah.
And my team was like, hey, we need you. And I was like, sorry, I'm so busy.
Sorry, I'm a children's book author now.
So I've always had that feeling of being creative and locking in. And that's where I think I like baking, because it's so precise and you just have to focus and do one task. And then you get to be creative with the decoration and everything as well. So that kind of drew into that whole art world that I used to work in.
We'll be right back. Today's episode is presented by Diamond of California Nuts, the century-old nut brand you know and love. As we're gearing up for holiday baking season, my favorite season, make sure you're stocked up on all the baking nuts you'll need. And with Diamond, you know you're getting guaranteed fresh quality. You can really taste the difference. Diamond has us covered with all the nuts, whole, chopped, sliced, and even in shell too, if you're ever in the mood to crack some walnuts. Hey, maybe you have a nutcracker. I'll go with the chopped walnuts, which I put in my crazy delicious chocolate marshmallow walnut fudge. The pecans are a must in my chocolate bourbon pecan pie, and I also love using them to make candied nuts for holiday gifting. That's when I want to be using the best ingredients I can find. So when you're at the grocery store, look for the nuts in the white bag with the red diamond logo in the baking aisle. That's your sign you're getting premium quality nuts that bakers have trusted for generations. Visit diamondnuts.com to find a store nearest you and to explore their fan-favorite recipes like walnut butter cookies. Yum! Happy baking!
Hi, everyone. This is Carrie Diamond, host of Radio Cherry Bombe, here with some housekeeping. This is for all our friends in and around Charleston, one of my favorite places to visit and eat and walk around, all the things. Cherry Bombe has teamed up with the Visa Dining Collection by Open Table and Visa to present a new event series, Working Lunch, Tastemakers at the Table. Each stop in the series has included a delicious chef-driven lunch, meaningful networking, and a panel conversation with some of the city's top culinary talent. Our final stop is Charleston on Thursday, December 11th, this Thursday, at Brasserie Le Banc. We'll get to hear from Brasserie's Vonda Freeman, Jillian Schaffer from Fig, and Corey Wong of Jackrabbit Philly and King Barbecue. Access to all working lunch experiences is available for eligible Visa credit card holders, and tickets are on sale now. Terms and conditions apply. Visit cherrybombe.com for all the details. You can also find the link in our show notes. I hope to see you in Charleston.
Now back to our guest. You received your master's degree in art history in the UK, and you actually came to the US because you received an internship at an art gallery prior to the pandemic. And I thought this was so interesting, but it was really while working at the internship and before the pandemic that you purchased your first stand mixer, which is so fortuitous.
I know.
That's just crazy. And was this sort of the beginning, like was the stand mixer sort of the beginning of you baking since you hadn't really done it in France?
Yeah, I will say that's when I realized after a year and a half in New York, I was like, wait, so people don't come home and have cakes already ready every day? Yeah. I was like on the phone, my mom was like, wait, I really miss your cakes now. And I would go to 2 different cake shops, but they were always a little too sweet for me, especially with the icing on top. And I was just like, that just doesn't remind me of my mom's cakes. So I was like, I really want to start making her recipes. And that's when my husband, Gapri, who at the time was my boyfriend of like not even a year, at my birthday bought me a stand mixer. And I remember coming back to the apartment, there's a huge box in front of the apartment and he was hiding in the back and I opened it. It was like this big stand mixer. And I was like, I was like, I guess there's no going back. I
Oh
have
my
to like
gosh.
really,
What
do
a
this
good
now.
husband.
Because I kept bothering him about it. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm missing my mom's Guinness cake. I'm missing this and that. And he was like, okay, we'll just make it yourself. And I was like, I don't have a stand mixer.
Yeah.
And so he got me that. And then I remember with a friend, we were joking because I was still an intern. And I was like, I don't have the budget to buy, the flour, the sugar, the everything every day. And she was like, let's call you Baker on a Budget.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I started as a little baker on a budget.
Oh,
and I would make cake for my team and I would bring them to work. And my colleague Loretta was always like, oh my God, Lucie, you have to feed other people. I can't keep eating your sweets every day.
That's like my husband gets so mad at me.
Exactly. And that's when I was like, okay, maybe I should really start spreading the word and, giving it to the
but
people.
I just love that it all sort of happened in New York City, in your apartment, with your then boyfriend. Yeah.
And it was very much just for us initially,
Yeah.
and then that's when I started making it more and more, and I was giving it away, and people were like, oh my God, this banana bread's actually really good. And I called my mom and I was like, Mom, what's that recipe that I used to make?
Yeah. Love.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So after getting laid off due to the pandemic, you did start baking sweets professionally for your husband's cafe. And at some point, I guess when you were wondering about your next professional move, you asked yourself, what is it that I love doing? And the answer was baking. Was your mom surprised when you said, I think I'm going to pursue baking? She was like, is this my daughter?
Yeah, she was, I really do think she's really proud now, but she was definitely a bit like, okay, this is very different from what I expected.
Yeah.
But she also knows that we're very similar.
Yeah.
So she wasn't shocked. But some of my friends are still like, so when are you going back to the art world? And I was like, I literally have a physical bakery. Like, what else do you need for me to prove you? But that's very French of them to be like, well, you didn't study, you didn't went to pastry school, so you can't be. And I was like, no, you can, with a lot of sweat, you can learn.
I love it. And then you did start doing pop-ups after your baked goods became more popular at Sunday to Sunday. And was that because you were eager to showcase cakes, which you couldn't showcase as well at the cafe, or also just because it was exciting and people were responding to cookies and banana bread and you wanted to share them?
Yeah, you're right. I think I was doing a lot of, I was doing cinnamon rolls. I was having so much fun, but I really wanted to make cakes. And so I started making cakes, pre-orders for Christmas at the time. So people at Sunday. But it was 4 or 5 people. They don't come there for a cake for Christmas. I had this one customer who was just buying my carrot muffin every single day. And she was the one who was like, hey, could you actually make this muffin into a cake? So I changed my recipe a little bit and it became my carrot cake that people love now because of that customer who forced me. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I really want to make cakes. And Daniel, who owns Alimentari Flaneur, I don't know if you know, he used to have a shop in Essex Market at the time, which produced ton of different fresh lettuce and tomatoes and everything. And he was like, oh, I'm seeing this idea of you making your cakes there. And that's when I was thinking of, it's going to be hard to slice them for people. I should be making mini cakes. Yeah. So it's easier and it's a bit more individual. And so I really started making my mini cakes and put flowers on it for that one pop-up I did with him. That's the first time I put a flower on a cake.
I was going to ask if that's where your decorating style was born.
Yeah, but it really was just kind of, again, on the moment. I'm not really planned on anything. So I was like, oh, let's just add a little flower on it.
Yeah.
And then that's where it started.
Yeah, I loved reading that you do say, people are constantly calling you and your baked goods whimsical, and you love that because you are somebody who sort of operates via whimsy.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm a very lucky person, so,
We are also lucky that you answered that question to yourself, baking is what I really want to do, and that then From Lucie, the bakery, opened in 2023. I read something that I thought was interesting. When you first opened it, you didn't expect it to be like a slice of cake shop. You thought people would kind of buy whole cakes and maybe a cookie?
Mm-hmm. And it was mostly because I was already doing pre-orders at Sunday to Sunday, so people would come and pick up their birthday cakes, but I didn't have enough space because I was sharing the oven with, the cooks from Sunday to Sunday, and I was like, I need to make a vegan cake, and then making bacon. I was like, this is not working out. And they kept opening the oven. It's like, you can't open the oven while I'm baking. So I was like, okay, we need to find a space that's just for the cakes. And so I was just like, we're going to do the exact same thing that we're doing here, but in an actual physical space for the bakery. So it was just going to be pre-order of birthdays and weddings. But then I was like, why not have, a little bit of cakes at the front in case someone who comes and pick up their birthday cake also want a cookie or something that day. But then that just changed very quickly.
Yeah.
And then I think it was interesting because I remember for the opening day, I was like, we're going to make a few mini cakes, a few this, a few that. I don't know how many people are going to show up because it was January, it was snowing that day. But then the New York Times decided to write about the opening as well, which helped tremendously. But then it was way too many people when I was like, I don't know what to do.
The shop has been open for 2 years in January. Tell us about how do you feel like it's transformed in its second year?
Oh, it changes every day, which I really like about it. But I would say we feel even more comfortable now. I think the team, it's such a small space, so everyone needs to work very efficiently.
Yeah.
But the team, I think, likes it as well because everyone's very close and, everything is also close to you. So you don't have to like walk super far to go and get a bowl or anything. Everything's above you. So it's actually helpful in a way. But at the same time, you have to be very organized because if you have wedding cakes on a Saturday, when you also have a line out the door, people wanting, regular cakes, but you also have birthday cakes and you have an event that day, it takes a whole village to piece everything together. So we have everything in the back on a sheet saying from 9 to 10, we're decorating these cakes. From 10 to 11, you're doing this.
Yeah.
You're going on a break at this time. So my managers are incredible for that because I would have not been able to do that.
A couple of things at the bakery. I wanted you to tell us about the almond croissant cookie that's on the menu. Can you tell us about that?
I know. I'm very excited about that one. I mean, I'm obsessed with almond croissant and I was like, I don't know how to bake bread and I'm not even trying to do that. But I was like, I kind of want to eat one every day. And then people have been loving the chocolate chip cookie and I was like, oh, why not? I've been wanting to do a second cookie for a while. And I was like, what should I do? What should I do? And a lot of my team were like, oh, we should make like almond cookie or something. I was like, wait. So I had a little aha moment. I was like, we should make an almond croissant cookie where you have a little filling in the middle.
Yes.
And so we make it en frangipane and we just have it in the middle as like a little bubble. It's the same base as that chocolate chip cookie. So it's like that same brown sugar that we make. It's just we add almond extract instead of vanilla extract in it. And then we make a frangipane. And so we put the frangipane dough in the middle and then put the cookie around it.
Kind of almost like roll it into a ball.
Exactly. And then when you bake it, the cookie kind of, relaxes, but the frangipane kind of stays in the middle. And then we put fresh slices of almonds and a dusting of icing sugar. So it looks the same.
I must have seen it on Instagram.
You have to come and try it.
Yeah, I want to. And then also the carrot cake. It's your favorite, yes? Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, it stays moist for like 3-4 days. It almost gets bitter over time. I don't know, maybe the cinnamon, anything in it that just kind of grows a little bit more, like the scent of it. So the flavors just deepen. But I don't know, I think it's just a comforting cake,
Is it an oil-based cake?
Yeah, it's an oil-based cake.
I feel like with oil-based cakes, they always get better with age. Oil-based cakes are so moist and
so nice.
So, like, almost all loaf cakes will taste better on day 2 or even day 3. So interesting.
And it mixes better even with, like, the cream that you make on top.
Yeah.
No, I love that cake. And I don't put any nuts in it just because my husband is allergic to walnuts. So I was like, you know what? Just remove the nuts. And honestly, now people buy even more because, you have so many people
allergic. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah. I just wanted to also say that your Christmas orders will be open soon at the bakery, yes? And people should be kind of checking out your Instagram to see when they go live.
Yeah. And I'll post a few pictures as well so you can see what they get.
All right, now I want to talk about the new book, which everyone can pre-order right now. Yeah. It's called Cake from Lucie, Recipes and Techniques from the French Countryside to New York City. Comes out in the middle of April on the 16th. Clarkson Potter is your publisher. Who was your editor?
Susan Luxborough.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Nice. She's amazing.
And did you have help writing it? Did you write it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had amazing Lauren who helped me write it because I didn't really realize that people quit the job to write a book.
Oh, gosh, yeah. You can't do both.
And I decided to write it, I think the first year I opened the bakery is when I started, which was, the peak of me being like, what am I doing? And writing a book on top was impossible. So I really thank Lauren for all her patience.
Yeah. And would she shadow you in the bakery to see how things were done? Or more at home?
Because I already had the recipes as well. Yep. And the worst part is most recipes were scaled to a bakery level. So that was a lot of work to kind of scale them back to being, a home baker. But I had most of my recipes already done. She was a tester for half of the recipes as well. So she made most of the recipes, which was pretty special because she really got to understand a recipe before even writing it, which I think is important.
And would she also be the one who scaled it for you?
She started by doing that, and then she was like, Lucie, this is insane. So then I did it myself with my team.
You guys are better at doing it.
Exactly. And I was like, I know this recipe as well because, some of them used to be my mother's. So I used to have them in normal scale. Yeah. So it was good fun, though.
And I love that you write it's for enthusiastic home bakers because to me that seems to include both novices and experts. All you need is enthusiasm. Tell us about the book.
I'm very proud of this book just because it, brings out that whole journey that I've had in the last few years of getting to really know the way of baking in itself, because it's such an art as well. So I'm really going through all those moments of, failure, and then being like, okay, now I know exactly how to do this and why to do this. So I'm kind of teaching. I have all those how-tos as well, like how to make Swiss meringue buttercream the way I like it. Not necessarily how everyone else does it, but how I did it and how I learned to do it, or how to infuse batter the way I like it. So I'm really kind of guiding people through my journey so they feel a little bit more accessible as well. Because I know that baking can be very scary for certain people because it's so scientific. So I just really wanted to make it feel a bit more fun and playful and accessible. And so I think a lot of the flavors that I have in as well are a little different, or they're spins on classic French recipes as well. I hope people really, appreciate that. And there's a whole aspect of the photography as well that I work really closely with a friend of mine called Lucie Epstein, who's an incredible photographer. And I was able to convince Clarkson Potter to shoot all the lifestyle on film, which is pretty rare. And I think it turned out beautifully because we went all the way to my home in France as well to shoot most of that. And then I worked with incredible food and pop stylists. It felt like a small family going together, and it was good that Lucia came to my home first. So she really kind of knew my family, knew my story, and then we shot all the recipes, or most of the recipes, in studio in New York.
Yeah.
But at that point, there was that whole feeling behind, and she knew what we were shooting.
Yeah, and you already had like a mood and a feel for the photos because you'd taken them in France, and then you could just sort of mimic that in the studio. I also read that while you guys were in France, there was no prop stylist, no food stylist. You and your mom, I assume, making everything?
Yeah, my mum was making a few things when she had time, but she was busy too because it was busy season. So it was just Lucia and I. We had the schedule. I think it was 6 or 8 days. And initially we just had written all those recipes. But then I was like, wait, I have to make the recipes and also shoot the other recipe and go to the village to take a picture. But it was so fun. I mean, it was exhausting, but it was actually, I think, the best way of doing it as well because there was no one else. It was just us and being super creative in the moment. But also because I had never written a book, I didn't really know what a food stylist or a prop stylist, the amount of work they did.
You didn't know you were missing them.
Exactly, which is good because now I'd be like, okay, maybe I would bring someone.
Yeah. All right, now let's talk about your salted dark chocolate espresso cake. I love that you call it like an adult version of a children's birthday cake. Classic French chocolate cake with this salted dark chocolate espresso buttercream. And it's a classic at the bakery, yes? Very, very popular.
That and the carrot cake, they're both, they're twinning.
And also it's the cake, which I love, that you're holding on the cover of Cherry Bombe magazine. I love that. I love all the synergy. All right, so for the cake, we're going to heat the oven to 350 degrees. We'll have a rack in the middle, and then we're going to spray, or we can brush, the bottom and sides of 2 9x13-inch baking pans with canola oil. The 9x13-inch pans, are they like quarter sheet pans with really short sides, or should we picture like a brownie pan that we might have at home with like a 2-inch side?
No, very short sides.
The short sides, like a quarter-inch pan. So we have 2 of those, and then we're going to line the bottoms, but not the sides probably because they're so short. Yeah. Line the bottoms with parchment paper. In a small bowl, I'm sure at the bakery it's metal, but at home, would you use like a small glass bowl, a small metal bowl?
Ceramic bowl.
Anything. Okay. In a small bowl, we're going to combine some instant coffee and some boiling water. And I had a couple of questions. Because you do say, because the cake is going to call for instant coffee, but the frosting's going to call for espresso powder or instant espresso powder that you mix with boiling water. And so you sort of say you can use either. Do you prefer the cake with something a little more mild, like an instant coffee, than putting the espresso powder in it?
Yes, because the whole point of the instant coffee in the cake is to bring out the flavor of the cocoa, whereas espresso will overpower that. Whereas like the buttercream is with real like chocolate, and the espresso, I like the bitterness of it. So it just has different,
purposes.
Exactly.
Yeah. And is there a brand of instant coffee that you like?
I'm not a coffee drinker, which is really funny as well.
You like tea.
Exactly. I'm obsessed with tea. Obsessed with tea. So to me, coffee is just a bit similar. Oh, my husband will hate me for that.
Yeah. He loves coffee.
Oh, yeah. He has a coffee shop.
Coffee shop. Yeah. Yeah. You can't say that. So we're mixing together some instant coffee and some boiling water, stirring to dissolve, and then we want to chill it in the refrigerator. Are we trying to chill it till it's cold, or just chill it till it's room temp?
Yeah.
And then we're going to sift some all-purpose flour, some Dutch processed cocoa powder, baking soda, baking powder, medium bowl, I thought this was interesting. We sift all of those things together. And I guess one question is, do you always sift rather than just whisk?
Yeah.
You always sift.
Yeah.
Love.
Do you not always sift? I'm actually curious.
I will sift if I have cake flour. And
Okay.
I'll sometimes sift if I have cocoa powder because both can be lumpy. But if it's just all-purpose flour for a recipe, for a cake recipe, I'll just whisk it.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
But I heard, especially it's more for butter cakes, but you want to if you don't have the cake flour, you want to sift it 3 times
to get that.
Yeah.
Do you sift 3 times?
I used to at home, but now my team is just like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, you're right. And honestly, I haven't seen much of a difference.
Yeah, I guess that would be the thing. I would have to try for myself at home. Am I seeing a difference if I sift a lot versus what I'm doing, which is just whisking?
And I think it's really more for those cakes that you want them to be very fluffy and light and the butter component is important. Whereas I think an oil base is not as important.
Yeah, also like an angel food cake, of course I would sift because I want that lightness. So we've sifted our flour, our cocoa powder. You add fine sea salt. And I wanted to ask, do you ever use kosher or you're a fine sea salt person?
Fine sea salt. But I use some kosher salt sometimes as well, yeah.
I thought it was interesting that you add the salt after you sift the rest of the ingredients. Do you not want to sift the salt?
Well, it doesn't go through. It always it always stays.
Yep. So you just add it later and then just whisk that in.
Yeah.
And we'll do this in a glass or metal bowl. So once we add the salt, we'll whisk our sifted
Exactly, and
ingredients.
sit it aside.
Yep. And then we'll combine some buttermilk and sour cream, which I love the idea of both. Why are we using both?
Because both bring different strength to it as well. And I think too much of one is actually not great in terms of flavor. I was like, this is actually the perfect balance.
And we're going to whisk those together.
Yeah. And then bring that, that sort of moistness as well to the cake. Because there's a lot of hot water in it as well. So bringing in that moistness so it doesn't dry out is super important.
Is there a particular whisk that you love? Or are we using... I'm
using the huge.
Yeah, a huge whisk. Of course. At home, you can use whatever you want, peeps. Don't get scared. So then in the stand mixer, fitted with a paddle attachment, we're going to beat some granulated sugar and some more canola oil on medium speed until the mixture looks like wet sand, about 30 seconds. Then we'll scrape down the bottoms and sides of the bowls. I give a lot of scraping instructions, too. So good.
Because it never hits the bottom.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're in the bakery, you're probably using a big Hobart, and the bottom has that big nipple, and everything gets stuck. I remember that was one of the first things I learned in the bakery about the nipple.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll scrape down the bottom sides of the bowl with a flexible spatula. We'll add eggs one at a time, beating and scraping before each addition, and then again at the end until fully incorporated. I love all of your beating and scraping instructions. Through you give them. I'm the same way. I'm like that too. I really appreciate those kinds of instructions. Now we're going to add vanilla, and I think I learned your favorite brand is Halala.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Who's from New Zealand?
Yes, nice.
She's amazing, and she's really lovely.
So we're going to add some Halala vanilla, and we're going to beat until incorporated, about 30 seconds. Then we'll scrape the bowl again. And then on low speed, we're going to add our flour mixture in 4 batches, alternating with our buttermilk sour cream mixture in 3 batches, and scraping our bowl before each addition, and mixing just until no streaks, but we don't want to overmix. That was on low speed. Okay, so on that same low speed, we're going to add our cooled instant coffee mixture, and then mix for 30 seconds more, scrape the bowl one final time. The batter will be very dark in color and quite thin.
It's very liquidy, yeah.
We're going to carefully divide the batter evenly between those 2 prepared pans. Bake for about 15 minutes. Are the pans very full of batter? Are we very careful as we're getting...
Very, very sturdy.
Yeah. So we'll bake for about 15 minutes, then we'll quickly rotate the pans, and then we'll bake until the cakes spring back when they're lightly pressed or when a skewer inserted in the center comes out clean. I always like to look for a moist crumb. I'm so conditioned now, if the toothpick or the skewer is clean, it's overbaked.
I know, you're right. I think, especially with this cake as well, it's you have that moist crumb, but you don't have the whole batter coming out, you know.
Exactly.
And that's where it's interesting because I was going to use that language, but I was like, this can be confusing as well.
It's hard to know how to get it right.
It's hard to know.
Hopefully if people sort of are following your time as best they can, because we all know that you can't always just follow time because everybody's oven is different. And
that's why I put rotating as well, because some ovens obviously are baking, when the temperature is coming more from the back. And so especially with a sheet cake and that liquid of a sheet cake, if you have a fan that's heavy on one side, it's pushing the batter and then you have a lopsided cake. Yep. Honestly, at the bakery now, we're lucky because there's a whole airflow and, it's a Rolls Royce of ovens for me.
Yeah.
Because my oven in East Village, when I first started, literally was burning on the left side, underbaking on the right side. It was like
it's horrible.
It was a whole Tetris game that I had to do, and
to like rotate it like just a little bit, just a little bit.
And then I heard so many horror stories of people's ovens. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna have it rotate midway.
I think those are really good instructions.
And if people don't want to do that and they know how to bake, they're like,
you're not there. You won't yell at them.
But I'd rather put it there in case.
Yes. So we're going to then bake for about 15 to 20 minutes more. When it's done, the cake will be soft and fluffy.
And all sticky.
Yeah,
exactly. So
that top will be a little bit sticky. Yeah. Then we're going to let the cakes cool in their pan on a wire racks for about 30 minutes. Then we'll carefully run a small offset between the edges of the pans and the cake, and then flip the pans onto racks, tapping first to make sure the cakes release, peel off the parchment paper, and we'll use a second rack or large platter to flip the cakes so they're right side up on the rack. Let cool completely. So just a question about the format of this cake. Do you ever make it in a round 8-inch cake pan?
At the bakery, actually, we sell it as a birthday cake.
In that shape.
In that shape, also in the quarter sheet and in the half sheet. I think one thing with the book, people really like the carrot cake and they really like the chocolate cake. So it was kind of me having to sacrifice one of the, I wanted one in that shape and one in another shape. Growing up, I feel like if I was 10 years old, I'd have 20 friends over for my birthday. And I feel like a sheet cake was kind of
perfect.
A good birthday cake. And I was like, that is probably what kids are going to want more. So I was like, that one can be a quarter sheet.
Yeah.
And the other one
I feel like it's also a funny thing about writing a cookbook that not everybody realizes, but you sometimes have to be creative in the way that you format the recipes. Like if you're doing a lot of cakes, they have to look different. Yeah. And sometimes there won't be a reason that it was sheet. It's like, it had to be different from carrot.
Exactly. So I just had to change it. And the decoration too,
I love that. So now we're going to make the buttercream. So in a small bowl, we're going to combine, now it's going to be instant espresso powder. Is there a particular brand or no?
I mean, not necessarily. We actually use espresso from the bakery in itself, which we roast on coffee at Sunday to Sunday, my husband's cafe. And so I use that one, which has a nice, strong, nutty flavor. You don't like coffee. I just know it does. And so I was like, that would be a perfect. So we just do a little shot of that and then put it in.
So if you have an espresso maker at home, peeps, you can do that too. So we're going to combine the instant espresso powder and some boiling water, stir to dissolve. Again, placing in the refrigerator just to cool to room temperature. We're going to fill a medium saucepan with about an inch of water, bring that to a simmer over medium-low heat, and then add 72% dark chocolate. Brand of chocolate that you love?
I mean, I like Valrhona. It's kind of my favorite.
72% dark chocolate. We'll add that to a large heat-proof bowl, set the bowl over the pan of simmering water, and make sure the water does not touch the bottom of the bowl. So we're making a water bath. Not a water bath. What's the expression? We're making a bain de marie. Then we're going to warm the chocolate. We're going to stir it. What tool would you use? Would you have a spatula?
I usually do a spatula, actually. Like a rubber spatula, because it's nice and, I think, easy for
flexible
the chocolate to run off.
And can kind of scrape the sides nicely. Warm the chocolate, stirring with a flexible spatula occasionally until the chocolate's melted. Remove the bowl from the pan, careful, because it will be warm, and use a clean kitchen towel to carefully wipe condensation from the bottom of the bowl, and we'll set that aside to cool. Now we'll sift some powdered sugar and more Dutch processed cocoa powder into a large bowl. In a stand mixer fitted with the paddle, we'll beat cubed, unsalted, room temperature butter. Brand of butter that you
Kerrygold.
Kerrygold. In stand mixer fitted with a paddle, you'll beat cubed Kerrygold butter, unsalted, on medium-high speed until pale and fluffy, about 3 minutes. Then we'll add that powdered sugar, cocoa powder mixture in 4 batches, mixing on low so it doesn't explode in our face.
We've all been there.
Scraping the bowl between each of those 4 additions until completely incorporated. And I love all of your little tips about what it's going to look like or what it's going to feel like. You say it'll be Play-Doh, look like Play-Doh, or
feel
feel
like the most professional description.
But it's so
good.
Does
a job.
It's so good, and that it'll be very thick. I think that's great, and also the way you told us that the cake batter will be very thin, because those are the kinds of things that do surprise home cooks and readers, and just a minute, this looks wrong.
And especially nowadays when you're used to seeing a lot of videos and recipes.
People are so visual.
Exactly. Yeah. It's important.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So now we'll beat on medium speed until smooth, about 30 seconds more. We're going to add sour cream to the cooled chocolate. It's almost like a ganache in a way, except it's not heavy cream and we're not adding it when the chocolate is super.
That's why I was like, I can't call it a chocolate ganache, but it's inspired from a ganache recipe. And I was like, let's make it into a fluffy frosting.
Love that. So we'll add some sour cream to the cooled chocolate, stir to completely combine, again with probably with a rubber spatula.
The same
And
one.
then we will add to that butter mixture and beat on medium speed for 30 seconds. Increase the speed to high, beat until pale. And probably won't pale too much because we have chocolate in there. But
it
pales,
stirs, yeah.
it lightens,
Yeah.
right? I can sort of picture it in my mind's eye.
The more you beat it, the more it's going to lighten too.
It lightens in color. It's fluffy, about 2 minutes. We'll scrape the bowl. Now we'll add the cooled espresso. And I thought this was interesting. And now we add the salt. I feel like a lot of people would have added the salt with the cocoa powder and the powdered sugar.
It's more, I think it started also because I would try it first. I just want to make sure it can live without the salt. And then I'm like, I would add a bit of salt. So I think it's just me being me. And I was like, I'm going to add it at the end of the recipe.
That's so
But
smart.
I think I always recommend someone to try something without salt first because it depends on your palate as well.
Yeah.
I know like my palate's very different from my husband's who needs way more salt than I do.
Yeah.
And so I like to try something without salt and then just adding at the end.
I love that. It's like a little window into your process. I love that. And then we'll beat until smooth, lightens in color more, about 3 minutes. Now we'll add some Malden sea salt. Why the two different kinds?
Fine salt just brings out a little bit more of the flavor and I think it cuts slightly the icing sugar. So it brings out more of the chocolate. It does this job there. But then it is a dark salted espresso, salted buttercream. So I was like, I need that feeling of salt in it that's not just kind of helping the chocolate. It's actually shining on itself. And I love Malden salt.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to sprinkle that at the end as well.
Love that. So we'll add the Malden salt. We'll beat on medium-high speed just until fully incorporated, about 15 seconds. We'll scoop 3/4 of the frosting into a large bowl and set that aside. And I love this little addition. We're going to add mini chocolate chips to the stand mixer and briefly just to incorporate the chips into the frosting. I love the idea of it's the same frosting, but there's a different texture in the one in the center.
Yeah.
Love that. So now the frosting might be slightly soft. We'll cover both portions, refrigerate for 30 minutes to firm up. Then when ready to assemble the cake, we'll let the buttercream sit at room temp until spreadable, about 15 minutes. As I just said, the chocolate chip buttercream will be used between the cake layers.
To make your life easier, just do one big buttercream with all the chocolate chips in it. And then you just, do an exposed style cake. It's just if you want to fully cover your cake with chocolate chips, it's going to rip the cake.
Yeah.
Kind of...
That's the reasoning. No, I liked that. So the chocolate chip buttercream, it needs to be stiff to hold its shape when we're stacking the second cake layer on top. You mentioned that we'll need some muscle when we're piping. So we're going to place a cake layer on a large platter or board. We're going to put 2 to 3 cups of the chocolate chip buttercream into a piping bag fitted with a plain round tip, 1/2-inch diameter. And you say you need a pastry tip with an opening large enough to let those mini chocolate chips through.
Yeah.
Is there a brand of pastry tip or pastry bags that you guys are using?
The bags, not specifically, but tips. I have specific tips that I actually buy at New York Cake. So it's all the ones that they sell over there. That's where I buy them from. I think it starts with an A.
A Teco?
A Deco or something,
Something like that.
Those are the ones I use. A lot of times I just cut my piping bag to the portion I want and I just use the piping bag.
Yep.
If you want the perfect round circle at home and it just feels a little safer, use that.
I think it's a Teco.
But I started with no tools, so be creative.
Ziploc bag.
Exactly.
So holding the pastry tip about 1 inch above the cake and starting about 1/4 inch from the edge, we'll pipe a rounded line of buttercream around the perimeter. And then I love that you tell us this. We're going to then pipe zigzags of buttercream in the middle of the cake so it's completely covered and then spread it with a small offset to fill in any gaps. I feel like that's a good tip because people who don't know how to decorate cakes don't exactly know. Like I would probably just plop.
I know, and I feel like especially with that cake that's a little sticky, then you don't want your cake to kind of rip while you do that.
Yeah, so the zigzags are brilliant.
And I tell that actually a lot in my cake decorating classes to people. I always want them to think of, you remember that game that you used to play growing up on that small phone? It was called like the snake, or like the snake was eating something and it would keep growing. I was like, that's what I want you to think about. So you start with like being a small snake and then you just keep kind of growing.
Yes.
And you're trying to fill the holes and then you can easily spread it.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I'm so impatient and I'm always trying to skip steps. I'd probably be like, I'll just plop. But it's so smart to know.
And I'm so quick at it now too that
it
just makes your life easier. In the
totally.
end.
As we're spreading those zigzags, we'll make sure that they connect with the buttercream perimeter. So the entire thing is covered. Then we'll carefully place the second cake layer flat side up. So we'll be flipping it, on top. And then I love this verb. We'll gently wiggle it into the buttercream. I love that, Lucy.
To make sure it doesn't move.
Yeah. But I love like wiggle. Then we'll empty the piping bag and fill it with the chip-free buttercream. pipe zigzags of buttercream to completely cover the top of the cake. Use a small offset to spread it evenly across the top and down the sides so it's completely covered. And then we'll use a large metal spatula or bench scraper to gently press against the sides of the cake to smooth the buttercream into this thin, even crumb coat layer to completely cover the outside of the cake. Metal spatula, what should I picture? Like with a handle?
No, it's not like this large. I'm really bad at inches.
Yeah.
It's this big.
Okay,
you know?
like 6?
So it's not that large. But
But kind of shaped like a bench scraper?
Exactly. It is a bench scraper. It is a bench scraper that we use, yeah. And I prefer the middle ones, and the plastic ones are not as
right, the
sturdy
flexible
for that.
ones are best for scraping that nipple we talked about.
Exactly.
But that's your sort of tool for kind of getting that crumb coat.
Yep.
With a cake like this, since it's a funny shape, you don't have it on a cake stand. You're not twirling it, or are you?
I actually am. Yeah, I am.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it makes it easier. I mean, sometimes if, the cake stand is busy at the bakery, I just do it without. But in an ideal
that
world,
can be nice.
Yeah, it makes my life easier.
And so this is the crumb coat, and I love this note that you give us. We should be able to see some of the cake underneath.
Yeah.
That's how we know it's thin enough.
Exactly.
We'll put the cake in the refrigerator for 15 minutes to firm up. Okay, I have to ask because I always do this. Do you ever skip the crumb coat?
Yeah, of course I do.
Okay, good.
Because it depends on what kind of cake it is.
Yeah.
If it is a butter-based cake, I think it just loses a bit too much of like it's called the sponge itself.
Yeah, loses
moisture. It does crumble a little bit more.
Yeah.
And also, if I use Swiss meringue buttercream, it's a little bit more see-through.
Yeah.
So if I don't have the crumb coat, actually you can still see the cake underneath no matter how much I put on top.
Yep.
So that one I have to, but when it comes especially to chocolate, you can skip that.
You heard it here. You heard it here first. So now using a rubber spatula, we're going to put a large dollop of chip-free buttercream on top of the cake. Use a small offset to spread it evenly, pushing any excess towards the edge of the cake. At this point, we no longer need to do our zigzags. Now we can dollop. Towards the edges of the cake, we'll add more buttercream to the edges of the cake as needed and use a small offset to smooth the buttercream into an even layer on top and sides. The cake, I'm just picturing it in my mind's eye. So it's a big sheet cake, but it's completely covered. We're not going to be able to see the layers.
No.
And now we'll transfer the remaining chip-free buttercream to a piping bag fitted with a small star tip and pipe sort of uneven swirls of buttercream. Describe to us what an uneven swirl. What do you mean?
That's when the word whimsical comes back again. When I first tried to do something like that, and I've always said I'm terrible at the specific piping that looks gorgeous and perfect. I can't do it. So I like to lean in the opposite way always. And I'm like, actually, let's have fun with this and let's be playful. And so instead of having just kind of the same size piping all around the cake, I was like, let's try and have it drip down, So some are way longer than others and some are a bit more on the front and some are a bit more on the sides. And I kind of really leaned in that playfulness of it. And especially if it's like that sort of, the chocolate cake that's supposed to remind you of your childhood birthday cake, you want to have that sort of whimsical, playful side to it.
100%. So uneven swirls of buttercream along the top and bottom edges of the cake, and if desired, we can pipe additional sort of crisscross decorations on the sides of the cake. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Lucie, and I just want to say that you are my cherry pie.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun, as always.
That's it for today's show. Thank you to King Arthur, California Prunes, and Diamond of California Nuts for supporting our show. Don't forget to follow She's My Cherry Pie on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and tell your pals about us. She's My Cherry Pie is a production of the Cherry Bombe Podcast Network. Our producers are Carrie Diamond, Catherine Baker, and Jenna Sadu. Thank you so much for listening to She's My Cherry Pie, and happy baking!